Welcome to Dynasty Playbook. It's time to get hyped. The season's starting, and I need it like now. I know it's starting like tomorrow. We're gonna have football tomorrow. Still not soon enough, guys. There have been so many trades this last past week, and I'm super pumped about them. We got Tyler here. He's gonna listen to me just lose my mind over them. So I'm sure he's in for a fun night. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, doing great. Yeah, the day that C-Mike went to Dallas and then Terrence West went to Tennessee and your Kristen Michael and Crowell hoarding, looks like it might pay off, man. Looks like it might pay off. We'll see what C-Mike does, but they're going to feed Crowell. They're going to feed the dude. We're looking at RB1 this year.
Yeah, and let's just kick it off talking about Kristen Michael. It doesn't make a huge difference for the situation in Seattle. I mean, Rawls is now worth a little more of a stash than he was before, but not by much. And for Dallas, I don't think we're going to see production for him right off the gate. He's going to take a couple weeks to adjust to the system, and he's got to be better than Joe Randall and Darren McFadden. By the time Michael's going to be starting, McFadden's already going to be on IR anyways. So I think we're going to see really good things really soon. And that might just be all the excitement talking. But even if it's not, as soon as we see a big week from him, I'm ready to trade him. I'm ready to jump off because he's not going to get a whole lot higher than that. And he's already, 27? That's like borderline unforgivable. He's pretty old. I think he's either 27 now or he's going to be 27 by the end of the season. And I might be pulling that age out of my ass, but I'm pretty sure.
So I thought it was 25.
Either way, he's
hell. We've been in love with. I mean, we've been doing the Christ. Oh, he is 24 years old. Will be 25 in November. So, and no wear and tear on him.
Okay, so scratch all that garbage I just said.
You still sell that ass when he blows up, and you can get, and if you can cash out at 75% of what you paid last year, year before, rookie draft, whatever, sell him. I mean, the chances are he's going to be the best back in Dallas. But when you look at a team like Seattle, just pretty much just dropping him. All right, they traded him for a conditional pick, which is like at best a 7th rounder, I think. The writing's on the wall. I mean, I do think he's going to be the best back there. I think he can do some things, but long-term outlook, once a guy gets, pretty much just cut, it rarely turns out well. There are only so many Chris Carters out there.
Yeah, we'd have to see. I mean, the only real one we've seen for modern day is Charles Johnson, really, and I'm not betting on it. And honestly, I would expect Dallas to draft a running back, barring just an explosion of production out of Kristen Michael, which is still a legit possibility. I mean, there was a reason we were super hyped on this guy. We viewed him as a guy that had RB1 upside if he got the opportunity. I don't know if my heart can handle hanging in for the ride, hitting that peak, and then it not happening and it crashing again. So I'd be willing to jump off now if the value is where I want it. If I can get a first round for him, I'm doing it.
Yeah, even a random first rounder from the championship favorite, I'm selling. If I can get a second and some change from a mid-level or lower-level team, I'm taking it. I've got him on a couple. I have him on exactly two rosters, and I'll cash out. If the opportunity presents itself, and it may present itself from a contender. If Michael does get the starting job, week 4, week 5, week 6, and starts putting up points, he's going to be a very attractive option to a contender because he's going to be a younger starting running back. And the hype train could very well just go off the charts this year for Michael, or it could go right back to where it was 2 weeks ago, to where he's borderline unrosterable to a lot of people.
Yeah, honestly, my love has cooled significantly just because so many of the guys we talk with on a regular basis just are completely on the opposite side of the spectrum, and they make good arguments. So it's kind of caused me to cool a little bit, and I don't like it, but it's what reality is. And with that, let's move on to another guy who he got dropped and picked up, and that's Fred Jackson. Part of the reason that Kristen Michael probably got traded. Now, this one I'm not a fan of. I thought Fred Jackson was still a good enough running back. He's got enough juice that he should have been able to finish out his contract and retire with Buffalo. But that's neither here nor there. It has no effect on Dynasty. Him going to Seattle doesn't really mean anything. If Marshawn goes down, he's going to have some value, but he's going to be a spell at best there. And he's an end of the roster kind of guy for me at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this was worst possible scenario for guys that have Fred Jackson on a contending team and counting on him doing at least what he has been doing, a percentage of what he has been doing. I just don't see any way that he's startable at all this year. I really don't, unless Marshawn goes down. I mean, Lynch is just an animal. But for Dynasty, barely even moves the needle unless you're a championship favorite and you already had him on your team and then you just kind of took a dump. If you're planning on Fred being your RB3 or whatever, you're not planning on that anymore. So, love the player. There's not a better guy in the whole league and a guy that you just never hear anybody say anything bad about Fred Jackson. People love Fred Jackson. He's easy to root for, but he's 130 years old, period.
And it seems like every year he goes out there, it's like, is this going to be his last year? And amazingly, it's not. He just continues to defy that age 30, cliff. And when he's 34 now, that's the fact that he's still produced like he did last year is unbelievable. But I think it's pretty much it's the end of the line for him, unfortunately. So we've also got Terrence West getting traded to the Tennessee Titans it was either a 7th rounder or a conditional 7th rounder. I don't remember specifically. And I think it says a little bit about both teams. For the Titans, it says that they're really not comfortable with relying solely on Sankey or Cobb going forward. And, I mean, we've all badmouthed Cobb plenty on the playbook, so I don't feel like we need to do that a ton here. Plus, he's going to be on the PUP list, or is he just injured right now?
I have no idea. I think he's on the PUP. So I think it was one of those we got to put him somewhere kind of deals.
Yeah, he's out for a decent amount of time.
He's just the worst. The worst.
He's like a bad Bilal Powell.
Yeah, I mean, and Terrence West isn't even all that good, and he is a way better version of David Cobb to me. I still think Sankey's the back to own there because of his work in the passing game. I'm not going to call him an RB1. I'm not going to call him an RB2, but if you can get Bish Sankey at RB 35 or 40, do it. Jump all over it. Because why not?
Really, all this trade does for me is make Bishop Sankey as a kind of flyer pick even more unattractive because they're probably going to split up carries between them. Sankey's probably going to get a lot of work on 3rd down. Terrence West is probably getting a decent amount of the running game, the 1st and 2nd down work, which means neither of them are going to get a consistent amount of work enough to be fantasy relevant, especially in a just hot garbage mess of an offense like Tennessee's going to be putting out this year. So really, it's all just gross. But on a happier note, you can go over to Cleveland and all the naysayers, and there have been so many of them that have said, well, the fact that they're still trying to get Terrence West work, it says plenty about how they feel about Crowell. Well, they felt confident enough in Crowell to pitch Terrence West away for essentially nothing. I mean, a 7th round pick is basically nothing. And it means he's going to be the workhorse back. Duke Johnson he might get work off the bat. He's probably going to get some 3rd down work, but he's got injury concerns of his own. And I've said it from day one. Last year, Crowell was the most talented running back in last year's class. If he had not had the concerns, if he had not had the character concerns from early in his college career, he would have been a 1st round running back. He would have done like Gurley did, like Gordon did. He would have been that for the 2014 class. But things happen. He's also proven since he's been in the NFL that He's not going to be a character concern. So the fact that people keep bringing that up, super irksome to me. Like, just let him go out and do his thing. He's not continually a character concern. So stop bringing it up. It makes you sound ignorant. And I'm doing my rant a little bit early this week, but getting worked up about Crowell all week. But he's going to be the workhorse. He's going to be the man. And I'm not exactly worried about, the passing game stealing a bunch of work away. Brian Hartline, real scary. Scary. They cut the wide receiver they drafted, Vince Mailey, who I hated coming out of the draft. Andrew Hawkins, maybe. Travis Benjamin, maybe. No. Just no. It's going to be the Crowell show. And when Dwayne Bowe gets healthy, we might see some legit work out of him. But overall, it's all going to be about Dwayne Bowe. It's all going to be about Isaiah Crowell. And I am stoked.
Yeah, I love it, especially. And I wasn't able to get him in, I don't think, but maybe one or two of the leagues that Drew and I are in. But the price you're paying for him, we were talking about this before we went on. The price you paid for Crowell last year was rock bottom. You're getting him in the 3rd round of rookie drafts. You're getting him in the 15th round of startups. It was beautiful. And it certainly looks like the situation is right now. And I know last year you'd get a lot of it was just super shitty last year. West gets all the carries one week and Crow's inactive. Then the next week Crow gets 20 touches and the next week he gets 2. And it was all over the map. And I can see why that would make people leery. And it made me pretty damn leery, to be perfectly honest. But it's time to feed the Crow. The cream's going to rise to the top here. Duke Johnson's a nice back, a really nice running back. But the more you hear about him, the more you find out just how injury prone he really is. And now I think he's dealing with a concussion and a shoulder and all kinds of crap. He may not even be ready to roll week 1. I got Crow in a ton of starting lineups week 1. And they're playing the Jets, which is a formidable opponent. But I don't care. I'm rolling with it. We're going to see what happens. And I think we're looking at good things. I think we're looking at a guy that's going to be a top 10 or 12 dynasty running back in next year's startups. I really do.
If he does even moderately well, I think he's easily a top 10 running back next year. And I can't stress just how excited I am. I feel like how Eric feels about Carlos Hyde right now. It's just everything he does, I just want to write home about and talk to my family about because I'm so excited. But let's talk about something that's kind of exciting, kind of depressing, and that's everything that's happened with C.O. Moore in the last month. C.O. Moore went from being a top 15 linebacker in both of our rankings to being a guy that we're like, I don't know if I can even rank him as a LB3 right now because the Raiders essentially just stopped caring that he was there. They stopped using him in practice. They essentially used him for special teams only, and it was just a hot mess. And then we hear a saving grace. He's getting traded. He's getting traded to Indianapolis. Not the best scheme for him. But a weak defensive line could lead to some added production for him, at least in terms of opportunity. If DeQuell Jackson leaves next year, chances are he's probably going to be the number 1 linebacker there. He'll take over, hopefully on the inside. He could I can see him playing on the inside or the outside, but really with DeQuell Jackson out of there regardless, he's going to be the number 1 option in terms of opportunity. But he's still not going to look good for this year.
It just sucks, right? I just went and finally got my rankings put up today. And CO, man, when I did my initial set of rankings of UTH in the spring, CO was my LB 13. And I was very comfortable with that. And I drafted him, at that same slot. I didn't get him at LB 13, but I valued him at LB 13. And that's where I'm getting him around LB 20-ish because nobody else was on the train. And as it turns out, they were right-ish. You know, I don't see CO as a 3-4 rush backer. I don't. I really don't. I mean, he definitely has that capability, but he's an inside backer in a 3-4 to me. And so what do we got in Indy? We got DeQuell Jackson, who is 32 years old. He's up there, man.
Yeah, might be 31, but he's
up there. I mean, DeQuell is a great player, and he's been good for a long time. Jarrell Freeman, another one of my favorites. Mr. Underrated Jarrell Freeman, 29 years old. So he's not a young buck either. And then you got Nate Irving, who they picked up from Denver, who is a thumper. Nate Irving's never going to be a 3-down backer. So, all right. So the short-term outlook is bad. I mean, it's real bad. Unless they want to get creative and find ways to get him on the field, and the only way they're really going to get him on the field is as a rush backer, 15 is not going to be it, man. You're not wanting to start CO anywhere at any time unless something crazy happens. But there's a huge buying window open, and it's wide open. And come 16, I think we're going to be able to put him up higher again. I don't know if we're going to be able to move him up to LB 13, but if he gets a starting gig, he's immediately, an LB 2 for me. The dude is that talented. So evidently Jack Del Rio just got a major hard-on for wanting to kick CO to the dogs, and we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. He may have had a shitty attitude. I mean, there's no telling what was going on there. But I'm disappointed that things have worked out the way they did. And to those of you who followed my rankings and followed my advice on CO, I apologize. But just know that I was right there with you, man. I was right there with you. Our rosters are littered with CO more. And I'm holding strong. I have to have the smallest roster in the world before I'm dropping CO more. And where I don't have him, I'm going to trade for him. If I can get CO Moore for a 5th-round rookie pick or, one of these, depth wide receivers or something like that, I'm all over it. And I'm going to put him on my roster and let him sit there and bake until next year when hopefully the situation becomes a little bit more clear.
Yeah, I think between the leagues that you and I are in, I think there's only one spot where you or I don't own him, and it's because Tim's got him. We've been pretty all in on this guy, and there has not been any indication that talent was the reason he wasn't playing. Everything we've heard, every whisper we've heard has indicated it was attitude, kind of clashing type things. And you could see it last year. There was the play, I want to say it was against Indy. I couldn't tell you for certain. My memory's terrible, but they got the sack and they're dancing around, way behind the line of scrimmage, and they're still dancing like everybody else is going to the line, and they get called for it, and the coach went off on them, and it's just kind of an indicator of maybe he's not taking the game seriously enough, and that could easily be the case. And Jack Del Rio's been doing this a long time. He's probably not in the mood to play games with kids. Granted, Jack Del Rio is not exactly the epitome of success in coaching, so I'm not going to take everything he does as this is absolutely the right call. He didn't exactly lead all those Jaguars teams to the playoffs, but he knows defense, and the fact that he was still willing to kick him even through the crappy attitude is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, to say I'm not scared would be a lie. I mean, I'm scared. I'm not happy about the way things went down with him. But the dude is just uber talented. It's another one of those believe in the talent kind of plays and hope that the situation rights itself. Because in IDP, you're never cashing out on IDP unless their name is JJ Watt. You're not cashing out. The trade market for IDP, it is not a seller's market. So just ride it out, man. Do everything you can to keep him on your roster this year because it's going to get dark and it's going to be bleak unless somebody gets hurt. So, yeah, I think we about beat that to death. It's sad. It's real sad.
Yeah. I feel like the whole situation's kind of beat me to death over the last few weeks, but let's talk about another player who we were so totally wrong on, apparently, and that's Trey McBride, who Tyler and I were ridiculously high on. I was at the point where pre-draft I was willing to take him as a third-round pick before the NFL draft, and clearly that went so well for me. He was a seventh-round rookie pick, which breaks my heart. It's, to me, the talent is still there. I don't know what happened. One of the guys we talked with a bunch said, I'm just going to tell myself that it's because they just had so many good wide receivers that they couldn't afford to keep him. And I have to pray that we're going to see some sort of Kendall Wright breakout this year so that I can believe in that, because I can't live in a world where Trey McBride is not a good wide receiver in the NFL, because everything on the tape said that he had what it took.
Yeah, super bummer, man. So he's on the practice squad. They dropped him. He cleared waivers. 31 other teams said no thank you. We heard all this diva crap coming out, and you didn't hear anything until the draft, right? And McBride's really falling. Well, evidently he's a diva. Something tells me this kid is a piece of work. You know, the fact, what do the Titans have? 4 receivers on their roster right now? Well, they dropped Nix. Shocker. They got Hunter, Kendall Wright, DGB,
Douglas.
I think that's all they have, dude. So the fact that they only, I'm almost positive that's all they have on their active roster is 4. So McBride could easily be in for a call up if that's the case. Here's another one I'm holding. It sucks going through your rosters, and I was doing it tonight because I got my MFL game day set up. Stoked. Love MFL game day. And I went and submitted a bunch of lineups because I'm like a kid at Christmas. It's so much fun. And it sucks when you're going down the roster and you see that FA next to one of your players, meaning this player is not on a 53-man roster. Those are the hardest players to hold. We talked about Charles Johnson a minute ago. I'm still super salty about Charles Johnson because I had him, and I had him in a lot of spots. And then when he got cut last year, I was like, you're out of here, dude. I'm done with you. And then look what happened. Now, I'm not saying Trey McBride is Charles Johnson, but I'm not saying he isn't either. The tape was legit on this dude. And, yeah, he was dominating small school competition, so it's hard to really see what kind of dominant player he can be against upper-level competition. But the route running was there. The hands were there. The skills on the sidelines, they were there. It was all there. I think we're dealing with an immature kid right now who doesn't know how to practice, doesn't know how to prepare for the game, probably didn't know his playbook. I'm just going to all but guarantee this kind of stuff that was going on at training camp.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell myself this is one of those Joe Horn situations where he's gonna dance around and play somewhere else or play off the radar for a couple of years, and he's going to come in and be the franchise savior for a few years and set some records and be amazing, because I just, like Tyler said, I mean, every aspect of the mechanics were there. I don't care, if the stats said he dominated at second school and you can't tell with that. I can tell what a good route runner looks like. I can tell what a solid hands look like, regardless if they're playing against high schoolers. It's the same, doesn't matter. So it's going to be like Terrell Owens level diva if a guy with that kind of talent is not getting to play. And speaking of players that have that FA next to their name that you hate seeing on your roster, how about Monty Ball? I've got him sitting on just enough rosters to make me shed just a few tears. And I can't cut him. I don't know why, because I didn't like owning him in the first place. The only reason I owned him in any places was because that stupid rhetoric that came out, last year, the Peyton bump for every running back, and that went so well. My read on Monty Ball was consistent from the time he came out to right before I drafted him in the third round of a startup because of everybody else's hype. I didn't like him as a runner. I didn't like him as a player. I still don't like him as a player, but I can't drop him. I don't know what to do. I mean, Denver dropped him. Denver didn't like him. They kept Juwan Thompson over him. They kept Juwan Thompson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept Juwan Thompson over him. So why can't I drop him? Somebody give me an answer. Why is this so hard for me?
Because his name is Monty Ball. And when sunk cost becomes part of your player valuation, can't drop him. Somebody's going to pick the kid up. He's going to be picked up rather quickly. I don't think he's a complete bum. I did a lot of taking Monty Ball and Ronnie Hillman super deep this year. Kind of like last year, you took Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson super deep, thinking if something happens, here we go. But Ball's not in a deep league, and like I said, we pretty much only play in deep leagues. He's not even close to droppable yet. Let's see what happens. There are a lot of running back situations out there right now that are just bad. So, he could definitely infuse some life somewhere. Like I said, he's not a world beater. But if he can ever get, a starting job somewhere, he's going to be a startable fantasy play. At least a flex player bye-week filler. So, yeah, it's kind of telling. But that stable of running backs in Denver, Ronnie Hillman's no slouch. I've gone on and on about how Ronnie Hillman is a legit football player. And Juwan Thompson is massive, could easily be one of the better goal line backs in the whole league. And then C.J. Anderson, we saw what he can do. So, for them to carry 4 running backs probably didn't make a lot of sense. So Ball's the guy to go because he's the worst of the bunch, evidently. And so be it. C'est la vie. Don't drop him.
Yeah, to me, my shallow leagues are the ones that are 24, 25-man rosters with 2 taxi squad spots. So chances are there's not going to be anybody on the waiver wire I like enough to drop Monty Ball for right now. I've still got room to keep Trey McBride on. Hell, until a couple of weeks ago, I was still keeping Devontae Davis on some of my rosters because I wasn't giving up hope. The fact that nobody picked him up the whole offseason means I totally have given up hope, but I was
worried about him. I liked a lot about him, but he's so slow.
Yeah, I let that one go.
I think that's what got Devontae Davis was he's just too damn slow.
And he ended up in a place where speed matters, and they already had a crowded wide receiver core as it was. They've got Matthews, Aguilar, Cooper, Miles Austin, as long as he stays healthy. And it's not going to be easy for you to break in with that kind of – and Josh Huff.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy for you to be breaking in against competition like that. Riley Cooper's not going anywhere. He's a hell of a run blocker. And that has a lot of value to Chip Kelly.
Oh, God. A world where Riley Cooper is on a roster and Trey McBride isn't, I just don't know if that's a world I want to live in anymore.
No, it's the world you do live in.
Sucks. Riley Cooper. What a shithead. You remember that week a few years ago where he caught what did he catch? 4 touchdowns from Foles? Foles threw 7 TDs and Cooper caught most of them. What the hell?
I had him in a starting lineup that week.
I totally did. God, I bet there was some serious DraftKings wins from stacking Foles and Riley Cooper that week.
Had to be. But, yeah, so that happened. And let's, we're going to take a little side tour and talk about some Devy guys. Mike Williams and James Conner have both gone down for the season. And Mike Williams had a pretty serious injury. He had a break in his neck, and he's lucky that it's not more serious. The fact that he's going to be able to come back and play football at all is pretty awesome. But we're looking at 2016 draft for both of these guys, provided they don't come out regardless of their injury, which probably isn't a smart move on either of their parts. But it definitely hurts their stock in terms of what they look like for injury proneness. But it leads us to our first submitted question from username 02. With the injuries to Mike Williams and James Conner, the 2016 rookie class lost one of the top wide receivers and running back for the year. Could both end up staying one more year and declaring 2017 instead? For Conner, this obviously means competing against Fournette and Chubb for the top back spot. For Williams, it's mostly about health, given it's a neck fracture. How much do these injuries change 2016 as far as the rookie class is concerned? Now, I'm going to start off and say that Conner, as much as I like Conner, he's not competing with Chubb and Fournette for the top spot. he's immediately competing for whatever that number 3 back spot is. And I don't even know that he's going to be that high. That 2017 running back class is strong. And Chubb and Fournette are going to be world beaters. These guys are going to come in and immediately be borderline RB1s before they ever touch the football. In terms of Mike Williams, it's always going to give you a little bit of pause because that's a serious injury, and it's going to be something that if it's aggravated, it could really lead to some problems. I mean, look at Peyton Manning's neck injury and see how well that went for him. But it's gonna thin out the 2016 class a little bit, but it was already a super deep class, so it doesn't take a huge chunk of that. There's still 14, 15 guys that probably have a first round grade on coming into this class. And there's going to be some guys that don't declare regardless of health. But as of right now, there's a lot of guys I still like.
Yeah, we've been on and on about this 16 class, and especially comparing it to this most recent class. We both like it quite a bit better. This is a bummer, dude. James Conner, man. Wow. I could go as far as to pop him in, right behind number 3, you think? I could see him competing with Derrick Henry for me.
I'd throw him right behind Derrick Henry. Easily.
Yeah, I love the tape on Conner. Absolutely love the tape on him. So it'll be interesting to see what he does as far as whether he stays or comes back out. It's all going to depend on what happens, with his recovery, with his rehabilitation, and what the NFL tells him. Gurley came on out, didn't stop him. I don't think James Conner's not Todd Gurley, but he's no sack of potatoes either. James Conner's legit. He's a guy that if we were holding a 2016 rookie draft this time 2 weeks ago, James Conner's a first rounder for me. Mike Williams is a higher first rounder for me. I love Mike Williams. We talked about it when we looked at the tape on Tyler Boyd. I wasn't ready to separate Boyd and Mike Williams. I like Williams that much. This is a troublesome injury. And he's fortunate that he's not paralyzed. When you start talking neck and spine injuries, that's some serious business. So it's another thing. It's going to see how does he recover? What does he do? Is he going to come out? Blah, 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 blah. So does the 16 class on the surface take a ding? Sure. Darn right it takes a ding with these two guys, being hurt. We're not able to watch any more tape on them. And we don't even know what their status is going to be, whether they're even going to come out or not. So sure, it kills off 2 first rounders, which is huge. But it's still a really, really nice class. I'm still investing in 16 first rounders. I'm still loving getting third rounders thrown in. We haven't even talked about the IDPs very much, but oh my God, it's coming. With Jack and Jalen Smith and the kid at Ohio State. For some reason, his name escapes me right now. We're talking some legit IDPers coming. So still love the 16 class, but this is definitely a blemish for sure. But especially in the case of Williams, you just hope that he's okay because that type of injury is just flat scary. And if the doctors advise him, don't play again, don't play again. Fuck football. Live your life. Be you. Don't go die to play football.
Yeah, it's not worth rolling around in a wheelchair to catch a ball for a few games and maybe make a game check or two. I'd rather have my health and be able to walk around. But we'll move on to the next question from Off in the Shower. And he says, doing my first Dynasty draft and was wondering, what is the best way to go about drafting? Do I draft like a normal fantasy league or what is the best way? Not really sure how to word the question, to be honest. And he really just wants to know what's the best draft strategy. And I kind of get a good idea of what he's asking. To be honest, you're not going to draft at all like you would draft a traditional redraft league. You're going to eschew running backs early on almost entirely. Unless Bell falls pretty much to the end of the first round, past the first probably 9-10 wide receivers, then go after the wide receiver. Go after the running back. Otherwise, you're loading up on young wide receiver talent every opportunity you get. Odell Beckham, Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, Brandon Cooks. Second round comes around, third round comes around, you're looking at J-Matt, Amari Cooper, A-Rob, Devontae Parker. Keenan Allen. There's a lot of solid talent in there. And that's what you want to base the strength of your team around, is those young wide receivers. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because, I mean, we could spend an entire show on how to draft a dynasty league. But just basically, you want to focus around those wide receivers. You know, pick up running back when the value's there, go after tight end when the value's there. And really on quarterback, unless they just come out of nowhere and just scream value, passing on them too. I'll grab Big Ben at the 12th round and be perfectly okay with that. Or, you know, I'll grab Rivers in the 15th if he's there. I don't care. But I'm not going and grabbing Luck in the first 12, 14 picks. I'm not grabbing Rodgers in the top 2 rounds. It's just not worth it to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case for the quarterbacks, but, you know, the wins above replacement, you're going to win at wide receiver. You don't need your quarterback to win you games. You just need him to not lose you games. Wide receivers are what's going to win in the long haul in Dynasty. We're going to go – Drew and I both are going to take a different approach where we're going to go the best available young wide receivers that we can get. You know, we're gonna trade out of the range where we're getting AJ Green, you know, Antonio Brown like that, and we're going to try to accumulate 2 extra, you know, top 50 picks. You know, I got no qualms moving out of the first round entirely. You know, I'd rather have Nuke and Cooks than AJ Green or Julio, whatever the case may be. But one thing that I paid a lot of attention to is be really clear about where you're headed. You'll know by about round 5 if that team can compete or not. And if it doesn't look like it's going to compete, do not draft Andre Johnson. Don't draft Larry Fitzgerald. I don't care if they fall to the 9,000th round. Don't draft them. Just move along. If you're going to commit to a punt, go all the way with it. Don't back out halfway. Don't draft Wayne Bowe. You know, take the long upside shots, the Trey McBrides. Yeah, kind of had to slip that in there. But, yeah, and if it looks like you can compete and you see those guys fall into the 12th, 15th round, snag them because those guys can win you championships, those older guys. But do not spend premium on older players, running backs that are 27, 28 years old, wide receivers that are, you know, 29, 30. Just don't do it. But, you know, your first dynasty draft, you're probably not going to want to jump around a whole lot. But, you know, if you can accumulate as many top 100 picks as you can possibly get and get some 2016 picks in there as well, first rounders, second rounders, you're not going to pay a whole lot of attention to third rounders. But if you can get that in the startup, it's just a huge boon to your overall success going forward.
Yeah, I'm going to slightly disagree with you on completely avoiding Andre Johnson type players, even in a punt. I'm going to avoid them to a point, but if they're still there in the 18th, 19th, 20th round, I'm willing to grab them because they're going to be worth something to a competing team that it's probably going to be worth more to them than the flyer I would take there that's young and would look nice that I would be able to grab there. You know, I'm still not a big fan of doing it, but I'm not going to pass up on a huge value gain when I could possibly flip it for some value down the road, especially with guys who I see being able to actually put up numbers this year and potentially next year. But for the most part, I do agree. You want to be very clear with your roster. You're not going to want to grab them in the top 100, especially. You're not going to go after the Adrian Petersons. You're not going after Marshawn Lynch, guys like that. You're not going to even go after guys like Greg Olsen. Stay away from, you know, you got to be aware of what players' ages are because, you know, you wouldn't know it, but Greg Olsen is not that far off from being that 30-year-old tight end. He's fixing to be the Tony Gonzalez of this league. You know, it's a little bit facetious, but he's getting up there in age, and he's not a punt dynasty asset. He's that guy you're going to get if you're competing.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and move on to Classy Kitten's question. He says, how much stock should I put into Josh Robinson? I know he's the handcuff for an old running back, but they could go out and sign Ahmad Bradshaw again if Gore goes down. What's the game plan there? Should I buy into the handcuff hype, or would they be looking at other options should he go down? First of all, I don't see Ahmad Bradshaw being a real big threat to Josh Robinson's production if Frank Gore went down, because if Ahmad Bradshaw gets picked up, he's immediately eligible for suspension for 4 games, something like that. Even that happens in week 1. That's a quarter of your fantasy season. I'm not a fan of Josh Robinson by any stretch of the imagination. If you can get him for late 3rd round value, I'm happy with him as a handcuff at that value. Anything more than that, I'm passing, because chances are once Frank Gore's time to go, they're probably just going to bring in another running back that's not Josh Robinson to lead the pack. Even as a handcuff, I'm not a huge fan of him as anybody that I'm going to rely on my team to use.
I like Josh Robinson. We've disagreed on Josh Robinson from day one. As far as handcuffing, and I'm a fan of owning entire backfields where it all, when it's possible. And Josh Robinson at the price that he was going earlier, sweet. You're getting him for a 3rd round rookie pick. You're getting him for free in a startup in the 20th round, 18th round, whatever it was. You're getting him behind David Cobb and Buck Allen and the artist formerly known as Jay Ajayi. So you're getting him super deep. So I'm all about it. I like the kid. I think he's got a really nice game. It's a super productive offense, with a great play caller, behind center. Andrew Luck's the heart and soul of that entire team. He's going to make his guys successful, other than T-Rich. What happened there? But, I'm all about Josh Robinson. I'm not going to go out and pay a future 2nd for him. I don't even know if I'd pay a future 3rd for him. I probably would if I own Frank Gore and I'm competing. But he's a really nice player. But like Drew said, there's a good chance that, he's a career backup. Frank Gore's got 1, maybe 2 years left in him. Indy, the odds of them bringing somebody in next year are pretty good. They didn't even cut Vic Ballard, who I was pretty sure was dead. Vic Ballard, when's the last time Vic Ballard took a snap, man? We got to be sometime in 2013 when last Vic Ballard played, right?
Yeah, pretty sure, because he went on IR before the season started last year. And even before that, it's not like anybody was excited about him as the running back.
Yeah, so Robinson's for me, I think he's a nice player. I really do. I don't think he's going to be Jamal Charles. It's just not going to happen. But I don't even think he's going to be Chris Ivory. But I think he's a nice young player that could produce for you.
Yeah, and I don't really have anything to add, because it's really just going to say that, I don't think any of the things you just said are true, because I think he's not very good. But we'll leave it at the fact that we actually disagree on something for once. And
it's always running backs. Have you noticed that when we disagree, it's almost always a running back? We're pretty much in lockstep on receivers for the most part.
Pretty much.
Wonder why that is. I need to go back and watch Devontae Booker tape. I missed something. I missed something there. There are a lot of guys, including you, that I really respect that really like him. Wow, how about a tangent for you, folks?
Let's move on to Avenger 757's question. He wants to know our take on which tight end not named Gronk, Graham, or Olsen could you see having an excellent year? What's a dark horse candidate to crack the top 5 at tight end? Kelsey, to me, isn't a dark horse to crack the top 5 at tight end, but I would pretty much consider him a lock to do it. In terms of guys who I would consider a dark horse, I like Eifert and Ladarius Green to crack the top 5. Eifert is a little more likely just because he's going to have the whole season to get the snaps. Green is going to hinge a lot more on what they see out of him those first 4 weeks if they want to play him at least matching snaps with Antonio Gates. I see him easily being able to crack the top 5 if he's getting even 70% of the tight end snaps there, because the talent is amazing there.
Yeah, just out of Martellus Bennett, he's not a dark horse. Delaney Walker isn't even necessarily a dark horse. We don't think about Delaney Walker in Dynasty because he's old. ASJ, if ASJ gets healthy and can get on the field, he could be the guy that can do that. A little bit deeper. This is a guy I was thinking of. For some reason, it has completely eluded me. This is a guy I was thinking this is. It's so late.
Jordan Reed, Jordan Cameron.
Jordan Cameron, that's the guy. Jordan Cameron is somehow, what was he last year? Tight end 4, Dynasty tight end 4, something like that.
He was pretty high.
He was really high, but he can't stay healthy. But if somehow Jordan Cameron can string a bunch of games together, yeah, I could easily see him cracking that top 5 in that offense with a young and improving quarterback and a defense that's going to smother people and keep them in games. You know, I could see Cameron doing it, but it's tight end, man. It's a freaking mess. Always has been, always will be.
Yeah, that I like that Cameron call. That Dolphins passing game is going to be formidable this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of production out of Ryan Tannehill. I've got a lot of eggs in that basket. But with that, we'll hit up our last question coming from Lettuce, which that's a fun name. I actually like that a lot. Yes, started a Dynasty League this year with 14 players. 2 couldn't make the draft in person or online, and neither recruited anyone to draft for them. 1 did pre-rank players, though not enough, and ended up with a disappointing team, but not the worst. The other guy did not do any pre-ranking and ended up with a horrible team. Guys who are only going to be around for a year or 2, 2 kickers, and 4 defenses. A couple good pieces. He immediately dropped out of the league before I could collect the fee, of course. First of all, F my fantasy league for auto-drafting 4 kickers on a team. Won't be using them next year. I'll touch on that in a moment. He got a guy to replace the crybaby who dropped out, but now we're trying to figure out a way that we won't be stuck with a non-competitive team for the next 5+ years. We've discussed a lot of things, total or partial redraft, which was shot down. Play free for a while, kind of shot down. People don't like the possibility that this guy could win money without putting any in, or guaranteed draft picks in subsequent years. How would you make this right? Not only for the guy taking over dumpster team, but for everyone else who did the things the right way. The new guy is pretty laid back and can afford the buy-in year after year. I just don't want him handicapped too much. First of all, I'm going to touch on the My Fantasy League thing. I love that My Fantasy League auto drafts 4 kickers for a team because it punishes the teams who don't actually compete in the draft. If you're auto drafting, it means you dropped the ball. You screwed up. So you should get a shitty team. Second of all, I don't know why you started the draft without 2 of your owners. I think that was a poor decision in the first place. You know, whether they pre-ranked players or not. If you're doing a dynasty startup draft and 2 of the owners aren't there at all, that seems like a piss poor way to start a draft. It's to start a franchise. In terms of answers to solving the issue, the simplest issue is to do a complete redraft. And if the other teams don't like it, they can either suck it up or you can find new league members. The other option is you drop those 2 crappy teams. If they drafted turds, then it's not really going to matter if you drop, 2 teams worth of free agents into the free agent pool because apparently they weren't very good. Save them, put specific markers on those players that they can't be touched until next year's rookie draft. It gives a little more value to the players that did poor their first year, and they can get a little bit stronger player with their pick than they would have. But all in all, I mean, there's not really an easy answer to this. You either have to redraft or you have to get rid of those teams altogether. You're not going to be able to just bring this guy in and have him take over a crap team and hope that it gets fixed.
Yeah, wow. This is a mess, dude. This is commish life at its best. I'm going to assume that this was done as a live draft. Which for a dynasty startup is just a bad idea.
I hate that people do that. The live drafts for dynasties. I had a friend that just did one. He was telling me he was on his way to do it, and I wept for him.
I mean, I could be okay with it if it's a live draft that with 15, 20-minute timers, something like that. You could hash out a deal if everybody is present and accounted for. I could see it being done. It'll take all day, but that would be actually kind of fun. Where you're just drafting for hours and hours and hours. But the email draft is the win here. The email draft's the way to go. If the draft takes a month to complete, it takes a month to complete, whatever. And this isn't my fantasy league's fault. That's kind of Bush League calling them out like that, because all the auto draft is doing is using ADP, highest ranked player. Any operating software out there is going to do the same thing. And at some point, 4 kickers were the highest ranked player on ADP, and that's what got put on this guy's team. So certainly not their fault. And it's not even your fault that you had, a guy that doesn't care enough about the league to be there for the draft. If everything was decided upon, of course, I'm going to guess there's a little bit more going on behind the scenes than what we're getting. But, as far as redrafting, that's the easiest option. The season hasn't even started yet. Well, too late to redraft now, I guess. Dropping 2 teams, that's another option. Probably not optimal. Better option is just have guys pick up the teams. I picked up some crappy orphans. And I mean some bad orphans. And I went shopping for the worst orphans I could find, because I enjoy the challenge and I also like picking 101. I like being able to sell off vets for draft picks. So I bet you'll find somebody out there. Go post on the DLF forums. Go post it, on there's all these forums out there. Sporting News, Roto World, I think, has a forum. Go post, in the Dynasty openings. The leagues want it. Somebody will take on the challenge of these crappy orphans, and they shouldn't get any boost. It's not fair to the rest of the league, for them to get extra draft picks or compensation in any way other than here's your team, do your thing with it. So those are your 2 options as it stands, or your 3 options is fold the league / redraft it, dump 2 teams, or just find somebody to take over the orphans. And there's not really a whole lot you can do, outside of that. But please don't use anything other than MFL for your dynasty. If you go to Flea Flicker as a commish, you're going to put a gun in your mouth because you're going to get ready to do next year's rookie draft, and it's going to have 26 rounds set up, and there's no way to reduce the rounds. And there are going to be guys that kept 27 players instead of 30, which is the league roster, and it's going to try to give them extra draft picks, and you can't stop the draft because it's an out-of-control fucking train wreck. Don't go to another site. Don't go to Flea Flicker. Flea Flicker is the only other one where you have year-round capabilities where you can actually do stuff with the league. You go to ESPN or Yahoo, you're going to be shut out of your league for 6 months out of the year, and you have to do everything through email and Google Docs, which is another put a gun in your mouth situation. Write it out with MFL. Get more comfortable with the interface, and don't blame them for having 4 kickers auto-drafted. Hell, blame yourself for having kickers in your dynasty league. I guess that probably sounds a little bit harsh. I'm being harsh here. I'm not meaning to be, but
kickers are the worst.
They shouldn't be involved in a dynasty league. And here's what kickers are to me. All right, take your starting lineup. You're starting 10 guys plus a kicker, so the kicker's the 11th. All right, so it's Monday night. The games have finally wrapped up, and you played your 10 guys. Instead of the kicker spot, just each one of you roll a dice. And whatever that dice comes up, that's the points you get. If it's 6, great. If it's 1, great. That's what kickers are. Complete roll of the dice and totally arbitrary. And the best kicker outscores the worst kicker by such a minuscule percentage that it barely even matters. So, whatever. I'm salty. I apologize for being salty.
I love that you brought up the roll of the dice because that was the exact metaphor I was thinking of. I went through and I looked at kicker performances year to year and week to week because I was trying to, really strengthen my argument to get rid of them in some of the leagues I'm in. And there are so many times when 4 or 5 of the kickers that score in the top 12 of any particular week were free agents that week. You're not going to find that with any other position, and it really just speaks to how random and useless the position is. And this is a super tangent that kind of has nothing to do with what he asked us, but I'm never gonna skip on a chance to rant about how much kickers suck. But Tyler also brings up that these teams really shouldn't have an advantage, and I agree with that about 95%. I think if you're gonna give these owners any sort of benefit for taking over these teams, it's you need to waive their fees for this year because this is not their team they're taking over. They've had no input on how this team was put together, and the fact that the other owners didn't pay before they drafted that's not their fault. That's not these guys picking up the orphans' fault. They should have their year one fees waived, and I don't care if your league mates don't like it, that they have the possibility to win money the first year, even if they didn't put in. They shouldn't have let the other two teams draft without people behind them. So it's partially on them.
At some point, it's for the betterment of the league. It's, do you want this league to exist or not? You 10 guys or 9 guys or however many it is, you might have to, pull up your bootstraps, quit whining, and just deal with it, or the league's going to fold up. Because getting started on this footing does not speak well to the stability of this dynasty going forward. I've had some super strong leagues fold, after 5, 6, 7. One league just folded. I wasn't an original member of. This league had been going on for 14 years, and it folded this summer. This was a crazy strong league. With good owners, it just kind of dissipated. So, if the other guys can't deal with what it takes to make the league succeed, then the league's just flat ass not going to succeed, and you're trying to square peg round hole this thing. And it's just not going to happen. So, waiving the fees, I could totally see that. The teams are that bad anyway. They're not going to be winning any money. And if they do somehow finish in second place, don't pay them. Throw it back into the pool. Make the pay. Put that money and pay it out larger in the seasons going forward. Or use it to buy a badass league trophy. Do something. You're gonna have to get really, really creative here. You're in a nasty situation as a commissioner, and I feel for you because commissioners get no love. And before I actually started commission leagues, I had no idea what really went on and what you really had to deal with, because every little thing gets dealt with. And all it takes is one crybaby in the league to make it completely miserable. Just pestering you about every little thing and every little setting. And it can be just horrible. So, I feel for you, and you got your work cut out for you. But you just got to put your nose down and be firm about it. And enough of these guys throw a hissy fit, fuck them. There's always next year. Join 16, 17, 20 leagues. You won't care so much about this one that isn't going to succeed.
Yeah, I'm afraid I've come off as a bit of a dick, but I'm definitely on Tyler's side. It's rough being a commish, and especially dealing with the crybabies, because you got them in just about every league. Sometimes you gotta tell them, just shut up, shut the hell up, go away. Like, this is what's gonna happen, and if you don't like it, bye, Felicia.
It's in the bylaws, but everything's in Drew in my league. Everything's in the freaking bylaws. And if it isn't, it's a very rare happenstance. So just direct them to the bylaws and say, this is what it's going to be. It's right here. I even went so far, and these are leagues with our buddies, but I had one draft go completely off the rails this year, and there was some crazy shit going on. And I wasn't in. It was all in the bylaws. It was all in the rules. Everything was there, but it wasn't quite understood. So I've even gone as far as to have a little disclaimer poll. I have read and understood the bylaws, the scoring, the settings, and all that encompasses. Click me when you're ready to go. And until you click, we don't draft. And I think that kind of got under the skin of a few guys. And I wasn't trying to be shitty or be a dick or anything. I just wanted to make very, very clear that once that clock kicked off, that everybody knew the specifics. So, getting the draft started without being prepared, it's a bad, bad start, man. But you can dig out of it. You're probably gonna have to be an asshole.
Sometimes it happens. And the solution you added, say the guy does take second, and you would have to pay out to him. Instead of not paying out to him at all, take out the league fees. Take out the $50 or whatever. Take it out of that, and then give him what's left. Essentially, make him pay the league fees out of what he won. That's one way to handle it. But to just be frank, there's not going to be an easy answer. This is going to be a hard road, and it makes it even harder that the season starts tomorrow. I wish you luck, but if you can't make a peaceful resolution, you might be better off just scratching it and starting fresh next year. get started in. Most people don't like drafting before the NFL draft. We're weirdos, but kick it off, June 1st. Give yourself the entire June, July, August to draft. That way, everyone has ample opportunity to set their pre-drafts, to make their picks, to do whatever they need to do. And, there's no issues. Gives you a whole season, gives you a whole season to set up bylaws with every situation covered. It gives you an entire season to find, 14 owners that are going to be completely committed to this league, regardless of what it takes. And sometimes you just got to throw away a season where you are hoping to get this thing started. I'd rather get it started on the right foot next year than to try and get it started this year and have it already be trending downward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we pretty much hit it. And it kind of got – I know it got the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, and it got Drew too, because we run a lot of leagues. We commish – I commish 1/3 of the leagues in which I play, and Drew's probably about the same. And in the leagues that we commish, we are each other's co-commishes. So let's go ahead and move that number up to about 60 or 70%. And you're always going to have some difficulties, and I hope I didn't come off like a total jerk. And I think I did. So I apologize for that. But, it's a game. It's supposed to be fun, and stuff like that just sucks the fun right out of it, and it really gets under my skin, in that respect.
Yeah. Tyler, you say that you think you came off like a jerk. I know I came off like a jerk. I was straight up dick mode when we started, but
hey, and I even managed to throw in another flea flicker burn.
Flea flicker is awful. Flea flicker is the worst, and the only I take that back. Flea flicker is not the worst. ESPN, Yahoo, and CBS are the worst for Dynasty, but flea flicker is just like a hair above the worst. And MFL is. Maybe it was the NFL dig that started me off, all hot under the collar, because they're just far and away the best option for Dynasty. But just a lot of it has to do with, we see these things that as commissions make our skin crawl. And, we want to help get people on the right path. And, Tyler and I aren't always known as cuddly or non-abrasive, so we probably came off pretty harsh there as we started. But hopefully everything works out for you, and I think that's going to fit our rant of the week as well. So I think it's about time to call it a night. You have any last parting shots for us, bud?
No, no rant this week. We kind of ranted there, but no rant because we got football. In 18 hours, roughly?
Mama said football the devil.
Real football. It is football eve. It is happening. And then we got Sunday football, and we got 2 Monday night games, and oh my God, we almost made it. It's so close. How much fun is it submitting the lineups, dude? I love it.
You have so much hope and optimism before your season starts. You're like, oh no.
You're like, I can win this thing. I turned in a lineup today with Julio and AJ and Evans and Gronk, and I'm like, I'm going to take it down. But fantasy football is a cruel mistress. You never know what's going to happen. And we work and scheme and play and trade and draft and do all these things, just angling for that edge that we hope we're going to get. And you never know what's going to happen, but it doesn't matter because we got football. And the Broncos got a run in them. I don't care what you say, Breeze. I don't care if Peyton's right arm falls the fuck off. We got a run in us this year.
It's been such a long summer. It's been way too long. I honestly, if it wasn't going to be this week, I might not have made it. I need it now. This preseason has been just the biggest cock tease ever, and I couldn't even watch it because every time I watched it, I'm like, this isn't real football. I can't attach a fantasy roster to this. This doesn't mean anything for anybody. I just don't care. I don't care at all. So I'm turning it off, and I'm going to go eat dinner. That's how long this summer has been. It's not like, it used to be I'd try and watch it, and I'd see how the rookies performed and how they looked with their snaps. But I've watched all these rookies. I've watched a million snaps of them this summer. Enough is enough. Let's just see them in some real games. But
we're going to find out quick, man. TJ Yeldon's getting the start. Who else? Tevin Coleman evidently is getting the start. I know you don't like Tevin. I'm curious to see what he looks like.
He's going to look like a bad Chris Johnson, which is ironic because Chris Johnson's bad.
Chris Johnson's just old. I got some faith for Tevin. We're going to find out real quick. There aren't but a handful of rookies that are going to be coming out day one, ready to roll. The
Melvin
QBs,
Gordon.
Melvin, need to watch and see what he does. Then we got our second year guys that we're that are primed to blow up. Cooks, J-Matt, A-Rob, now Devontae, Sammy. I hope to God Sammy just blows up and rubs it in everybody's freaking face.
The difference, 12 touchdowns. Yeah.
I mean, something just crazy. But like Sammy and Mike's numbers last year were not that far off. Mike Evans is in our circles the number 2 overall dynasty asset. And there are a lot of people that have him ranked that highly, but nobody has him ranked below 10 or 12. But we can bash Sammy to death, who put up a very similar stat line, less the touchdowns.
With an injury.
Right. And Mike's catching passes from
a crappy quarterback.
Yeah, right. It's not like the situation is just golden. I hate to turn this into Mike versus Sammy, but I want Sammy to blow up. I want Hyde to blow up. I want the Crow to go crazy.
Caw-caw!
I want to see A-Rob drop 12 touchdowns. I mean, there's so much I want to see happen. I think my hopes might be set a little bit high on some of these guys, but I think we can reach out and touch it finally. We're going to find out real quick.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, this has been the Dynasty Playbook, where our hopes are entirely too high and they're about to be dashed to the ground in flames and depression. But you guys are going to be here for the ride. I've been your host, Drew. You can find me on Twitter at Drew Dodson NFL. With me has been my awesome co-host, Tyler. You can find him on Twitter at HBombIDP. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your first week of football. We'll see you again next week.